Hi, it's Terry Springs. Thank you so much for staying with us on Talking Solutions. I don't know about your world, but I got a lot of football fans around me, and every single one of them knows the name Deacon Jones. Today we're finding out about the Deacon Jones Foundation, and with us, Elizabeth Jones, possibly a relative?
Maybe his wife.
Everybody has heard of Deacon Jones. Deacon has passed a number of years ago?
Deacon passed away in June of 2013.
Just now coming up on 2 years.
Yeah.
Much too soon.
Well, football players, and I suppose the general public doesn't really know this, but football families know that football players really don't have the same longevity that other men in this country do. It has to do a lot with what they do to their bodies when they're playing.
You're so right on that. It is starting to come out a little bit, to the point where even the NFL is acknowledging in situations like head injuries and concussions and the sort of things that these football players who we all have watched and loved and admired over the years have a really hard road, especially when they finish playing.
Well, they do, but it's not just traumatic brain injuries. It's athletes' hearts, they call them. It's chronic arthritis. Most of them have had multiple surgeries, broken bones. They suffer a lot after they play. I don't think Deacon had one day in his life when he didn't have lower back pain, even though he never had a surgery, ever, in 14 years of playing. So he was quite unique in that, but that doesn't stop you when you're hitting 300-pounders every 30 seconds. You wind up with some problems.
That's one of the things I believe that Deacon Jones is famous for, because he was such a great defensive player. Wasn't he the one when they started talking about sacking a quarterback? Deacon Jones was the best at that.
Well, first of all, he coined the term. So, yes, he was the best. They go back and they say all time in the NFL is from 1982, but that was one of Deacon's most difficult concepts to understand because football didn't begin in 1982. Michael Strahan, who's a dear friend, Deacon was his mentor and he worshipped the ground Deacon walked on, but Michael holds the single season record at 22 and a half sacks in a 16-game season, but in truth and in writing and on trophies that I have, Deacon had 26 sacks in 1967, and he played 14-game seasons, and 24 sacks in 1968. So he had 50 sacks in 2 seasons in 28 games. And he also had 6 sacks in the postseason, so it was actually 32 sacks.
The best.
Yes.
No question.
Yeah.
I love talking football. I don't know it as well as my husband does, but we so idolize these athletes, these competitors on the gridiron. And no question, hands down, Deacon Jones had quite the legacy.
He did, and I don't know how many of your listeners really understand this or know this, but in almost 100 years of the National Football League, the league has never once created an award for a player. They have the Lombardi Award, of course, and the Roselle Award. But 2 days after Deacon passed away, the commissioner called me, and for the very first time in the history of the NFL, they created the Deacon Jones Award. And it's given every year now to the player who has the most sacks in the season. That's a huge honor and a tribute to the game my husband played.
Learning this for the first time, it gives me kind of a warm, fuzzy feeling just to hear it. That's not the only thing that Deacon Jones has his name on, is it?
No, it's not.
Talk about the Deacon Jones Foundation. This is actually quite interesting. He did not come from a life of privilege, far from it.
Far from it is correct. Way far from it. The town where he was born, Eatonville, Florida, pardon the expression, but it's the same shanty town as it was when he grew up. And one of the things that was always a thorn in his side was what he may have been able to have been had he had the proper education, the proper tools. He never did. And so it was always important to him to give back. And he was especially involved with children. He had a great personality with kids. He used to scare the devil out of them and then come up with this big smile and made a lot of them cry first. But in 1997, Deacon and I formed the Deacon Jones Foundation, and the purpose of it was not only to help inner city kids be able to go further with their educations, but the real meaning of it was to teach them how to give back to their own communities and help other kids take the tools and the education that we provided them, and then have them get the love and the understanding of going back and helping raise other people in their community to levels that they didn't think they could attain.
Take those opportunities and pass them along.
Yes.
That's a wonderful thing. It it sounds like when the Deacon Jones Foundation was first started, that was in California, correct?
Yes.
Where you, with Deacon, your husband, had been able to so positively affect the lives of children and help them with education, getting to college. Was it a 7-year program to where you'd work with kids during the last few years of school and then on into the 4 years of college?
Yes, it was. If Deacon was nothing else, he was intense and a little crazy because he wanted to take kids at the end of the 9th grade, which is a horrible age for teenagers, as I'm sure you know.
Oh, yeah.
And I didn't, raising 2 sons myself, really didn't want to have anything to do with 9th graders. But Deacon wanted to give them a level playing field before they went into university. And when you're raised the way I was, which was in a relatively affluent environment where I had everything that I wanted, it's very difficult to understand the deprivation for kids whose families can't afford to have things, and you don't realize so much of what they don't have. And you think about a level playing field where they have better schools, better teachers, better this, better that. But that's not it. It's much, much deeper than that. And one of the things that Deacon would say all the time was that kids in the inner city, when they're growing up, they don't hear about the stock market and real estate deals and investments and other things at the dinner table. They know nothing about it. So when they do finally go into a university, there's a huge chasm between their background and what they know and what the other kids at the school know. And he wanted to get past that and close that gap. And so we took kids at the end of the 9th grade. They went through very rigorous testing before we chose them. We interviewed them. We interviewed their families. We went to the schools. They had transcripts they had to give to us. They had letters of recommendation they had to give to us. And we were very careful as to who we chose because we wanted kids who were good, clean kids who had leadership qualities and who would appreciate what it was that we were doing for them. But then we gave them everything we would give our own kids. To me, there was nothing more that we gave to them than what we would give to our own kids. To Deacon, what we were giving to them was everything they didn't have. So we mentored them. We introduced them to corporate presidents and CEOs and people who were friends of ours. We took them to fancy lunches. We bought them business cards. We taught them how to network. We brought them to black-tie dinners. We took them in limousines. We did everything that we just normally did in our own life. We set up accounts for them. We had a young man who had just graduated, and he was a stockbroker at Merrill Lynch. We set up brokerage accounts for each one of them, and we allowed them, with the counseling of the gentleman from Merrill Lynch, to have $2,500 in an account. And they were allowed to invest it as they chose, as long as it was with the approval of the stockbroker. And all of a sudden, you don't bother learning about stocks and investments unless you have something at risk. So all of a sudden they all cared about it and they learned about it and they invested their money and they received whatever they wanted. They could take it all out when they graduated college or leave it in. But it was a big learning experience for them.
Financial literacy.
Yeah.
That's huge.
Very huge. And something you don't even think about when you grow up with privilege.
Yeah, something that they never had. Wow. So the Deacon Jones Foundation, you were in operation in California for how many years?
We started it in 1997. Deacon became ill, really the last event that we had. We raised all of our money at that time through special events and very large corporate supporters and donations. And the last event that we had was January of 2012, after which Deacon was really not well enough to continue. The foundation didn't close, but we didn't take in any more kids. And we kind of took it down to where it was almost ready to close. When Deacon passed away, I had a conversation with my accountant about closing it. And he fortunately said, don't do that. Keep it open for a while. Because one of the things that Deacon really asked me to do was to keep it alive and going after he passed away. And I just had a little readjusting to do. And I really couldn't quite wrap my head around what I wanted to do. But I'm glad that I didn't close it because I moved to Las Vegas and had the opportunity to meet some very fine sports artists and decided that that would be an ideal way to raise money for the Deacon Jones Foundation, but also to pay tribute to my husband and to the National Football League that was his life.
The Deacon Jones Foundation started and existed in California, it sounds like for about 15 years, helping to really seriously change the lives of children, especially at-risk kids. But then after Deacon passed, which was in 2013, almost 2 years ago, you end up moving here to Las Vegas. And now the Deacon Jones Foundation that you are now ramping back up is going to be here in Las Vegas. Is that right?
Yes, I did domesticate it here in Las Vegas, so now it's a Nevada corporation. It's no longer a California corporation. I have, I believe, 15 or 16 sports artists right now. The National Football League licensed all of their trademarks to the Deacon Jones Foundation. They always supported us when Deacon was alive, and the commissioner and the league has continued to do that. And there are 15 or 16 great sports artists who have all licensed individual pieces of art to the Deacon Jones Foundation, and currently they're painting specifically for the Deacon Jones Foundation, and we are producing limited edition giclées, reproductions of the paintings that they're doing, limited editions to only 125 paintings each. They're gorgeous. They're all on archival canvas with archival ink. They represent so many great players and so many plays and so many teams in the National Football League. One of each of them goes directly to the league headquarters, and they have them lining the halls on Park Avenue, and they're putting them on their store. So I have support all over the place from all of the league and the owners and the artists, and everybody's really behind it. Everybody loves what they're doing. Everybody is honored to be a part of it. I'm really thrilled to be able to have gotten about 60 paintings to date, so we've been really moving quickly.
I know so many sports fans who would love to have something like this and to believe that it's these wonderful sports artists, that everything is licensed through the NFL, that the money that is raised benefits the new generation of the Deacon Jones Foundation, which now is right here in Southern Nevada. How would we see these? How would we look into getting one as that special gift for someone or investing in one of these pieces of art?
Well, yeah, and Father's Day is coming up too. And you can have your listeners go to deaconjones.com. They can find out all about the Deacon Jones Foundation. They can go to the store. They can look at the paintings. And then they can either contact me by telephone or by email, and certainly ask whatever they want to ask about the paintings. We sell them both rolled as well as stretched and gallery wrap, so that's their decision. But 100% of the funds go to the Deacon Jones Foundation. In all the years that Deacon and I ran the foundation, we ran it out of our house, so we had no overhead. We never took a dime from it, so 100% of the funds went to the kids, and that's what we're doing now. I'm working out of my office in my house with my sister, who's my assistant, and some volunteers, and that's what we intend to do. What I want to do, because the initiative is now art as opposed to just education in general, is to choose areas here in Las Vegas, and I know there are areas here where the school systems don't have art programs, don't have a lot of programs, and there are a lot of kids at risk or in need. And what I want to do through the Deacon Jones Foundation now is to create programs after school or summer programs, art classes, pay for the entire class, the teacher, the supplies, and everything else. And then what I hope to do is to have the artists who are artists for the Deacon Jones Foundation ultimately judge who the best artists are amongst the kids, and then take those 2 or 3 first, second, third prize winners and give them scholarships towards their art.
Liking this idea, taking kids who are already in at-risk type situations and don't have access to art classes and the sort of things that the school system, unfortunately, because of funding, the first things that get stripped out are things like art.
Yeah.
Music.
And they've also stripped out physical education, if you can believe that. I'm sure you know that already anyway.
It's just hard to grasp. We're in a society where we all need to be more active for our health, that unfortunately those type programs end up being designated as optional.
Well, you can understand, and I understand, that home economics is not a big deal, and art is not a big deal, and music and literature and humanities all of a sudden become not a big deal. But those are the things that I and the people who grew up in my neighborhood gravitated to. Those were our elective courses. Those gave us the ability to express ourselves. If not find vocations, we certainly developed avocations that stayed with us for our lives, and that's what's being denied these kids. So they hang out on the corner and they do bad things instead.
There's a lot of good things about the Deacon Jones Foundation. Very excited to hear that this is actually moving and reestablishing here in Southern Nevada. Do you already have your eyes on some schools maybe that don't have the arts type programs that you can also help provide access to?
Well, my sister actually did some research and did speak to a couple of people, the superintendent and a couple of other people in the public school system. And I know that I'm very unfamiliar with Las Vegas, so if I say the wrong thing, please forgive me. But I do know that I believe northeast Las Vegas is a particular area that has problems and lower income areas. Preferably, I'd like to attack that area first and then go from there wherever it's needed.
Elizabeth, I would imagine that your plan as far as the Deacon Jones Foundation version 2.0 here in Las Vegas, that not only are you looking through the help of the artists and all of the work that you're doing in that area, providing that to kids who don't have access, but also being able to reestablish the sort of educational assistance that you were able to provide in the past.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. It's not just about art, but I think when you have a hook that makes a child be interested, then it changes things. And of course, when Deacon was alive, athletics was the hook. And that was the one thing that Deacon didn't want, actually. He didn't want us to bring any students into our program who were great athletes, because athletes get scholarships from all over the place all the time. And they don't need us. If they're really that good, they didn't need the Deacon Jones Foundation at all. Whereas other kids who wanted to be doctors and lawyers and whatever else they wanted, every single one of the kids who went through our program not only graduated college, but furthered their education, got their master's. There's one young lady I love dearly and with whom I'm very close. She's a pediatric dentist. She's 30 years old now. She has a sister who has 2 dental offices here in Las Vegas, and she also works in Newport Beach in California. If I had her here with me right now, she would tell you what the Deacon Jones Foundation meant to her. And those are the kinds of things that stay with you forever and make you feel that you really did do something important.
They always say one of the best things you can do in life is to make the difference in the life of a child.
Yeah, and I think that so many people don't realize what you get out of it. What you give is one thing. We all can write down what we give, but what you get, there's no way of explaining that.
I believe that the reason why we're here on this earth is to help others. The Deacon Jones Foundation is now being reestablished, re-energized here in Southern Nevada. And with us today on Talking Solutions, Elizabeth Jones. Deacon Jones was your husband.
Yes.
And you're carrying on this whole dream that the two of you achieved together.
If I didn't, I think he'd probably strike me from above or something like that.
He's with us.
Yeah.
He's watching. I believe that.
I do too. Honestly, I do, because I have to tell you that when I came here, I moved here really because my sister has lived here for 40 years. And when Deacon passed away, I sold our home in Los Angeles, and it just felt right being close to my sister. And I really didn't exactly know what I was going to do. And I'm not the kind of person who can sit and do nothing. I was thinking about volunteering for this charity or that charity, and then these artists just came upon the scene. And it was everything that's happened from the moment that I made up my mind to reopen the foundation and restart it. Everything seems like it's sort of been blessed from somewhere above, because everything's just been falling into place perfectly, from getting the license directly from the commissioner of the National Football League and the artists who've come on board, and everything just seems like it was meant to be.
That's the only phrase. It was meant to be.
I think so.
And lucky us here in Southern Nevada, because now the Deacon Jones Foundation is happening right under our feet, with help from the wonderful Elizabeth Jones. Have you found any of the kids that are they even on the horizon yet, the children who at about 9th grade may enter that 7-year type program like you had with the Deacon Jones Foundation previously?
No, I don't want any 9th graders in 7-year programs.
That's what
anymore.
Deacon liked. I know.
You see, Deacon never had children of his own. He was stepfather to my kids, but they were a little bit older, so he never got the joy of 9th graders.
That's one thing you can call it.
Yeah. But no, I think that the program that I really would like to do is more maybe middle school, but probably more of high school kids who are closer to going into college or deciding whether or not they're going to go to college in the first place. And as much of the 7-year program as I'm able to bring to them, I will, but certainly not the very hands-on, very intense, very constant program that the 7-year program was. I mean, we virtually became their second family. It was great, but it was a chore. It was hard. It was very hard. And oftentimes what you find out, especially when you're a celebrity, is everyone wants to be near you. Everybody wants to say that they know you and say that they're helping you. And everybody promises all kinds of things. And then, as you probably know, when it comes to a lot of volunteers and a lot of programs, but especially when you have the kind of celebrity that Deacon had, they don't perform. They start out gung-ho, and then they have reasons that make them unable to do what they say. So it wound up that Deacon and I were basically doing just about everything with these kids. And the mentors who wanted to mentor them dropped off. And the one thing that I did find out was the worst thing in the world that you can do to any of these kids is promise them something and then not go through with it. Because they've been promised everything for years.
That's what I'm thinking. They've seen that before.
Yeah. And the minute you promise them something, you darn well better be able to produce it or you break their heart. And they just look at it and say, well, disappointed again. My husband's signature move, besides sacking everybody he could get his hands on, was the head slap. And he used to say all the time it was just like another head slap to these kids. If they were promised something and then that person didn't perform, it was just they expected that.
That kind of history in a child's past, where they're constantly promised something that doesn't come through, or somebody that doesn't follow up on what they said that they would do, that would then become a very handy excuse for them not to perform later in life. Hey, that's just the way it is. People don't carry through on things. I don't expect them to do what they said they'd do, so why do I have to?
Yeah, and I think that there's one little story that really is exemplary to me. One of our students who was a finalist, she did not become a member of our team, but she was a finalist, and we had a black tie evening where all of the finalists and their families and all of our corporate sponsors came and all of our board members, and we announced the winners. Prior to that, all of the finalists had told me what they wanted to be when they grew up. This one little girl said that she wanted to be a PI. Well, to me, a PI is a private investigator. So I wrote a little story on each one of them and what they wanted to be when they grew up, and it was on this big screen in the middle of this black tie event in a big hotel. And afterwards, she came to me and she said, I don't want to be a private investigator. I want to do personal injury.
Oh.
And to me, that was just wow, because when you're raised in the ghetto, the personal injury attorneys are the people that you believe are there to help you. They're the ambulance chasers. Excuse me, guys, if any of you are listening. But that's really what they are. And people who live there don't understand that oftentimes they're being taken advantage of by these people. They see these people drive around in expensive cars and come and say, we're going to help you. And that's what this little girl wanted to be. She thought these were the people who would help the most in her community. And that's what she wanted to do. And it was a mind blower to me. You know, you're raised in different circumstances. You think different things, and PI to me was never personal injury.
No, I heard the private investigator too. That's exactly what I thought.
So it's a different way of life. One little girl who came into our program, we had them intern for 1 month every summer, paid for internships, as well as 1 month of community service, and we sent her to live with the president at that time of Field of Golf and his family in Utah. She went there, and she was there for a few days, and the president was on our board, and he called us, and we asked him how she was doing, and he said she was doing great, but she was very scared. What was she scared about? Well, she lived in a very small house in an area in California, in Los Angeles, and there were 14 people in the house. And Deacon and I, even though Deacon was raised in poverty, Deacon and I never gave it a thought. But Nancy was scared to death because now she lived in this big house with her own bedroom. There weren't any other people in the room with her, and it was the very first time she'd ever slept in a bed.
Wow.
Yeah. It blew us away. You don't think of that. You don't ever think of that.
That doesn't seem to be a great privilege.
I know.
Sleeping in a bed, that's pretty basic.
Well, yeah, and then you think of it, you think, my God, where did I think she slept? There's 14 people in that little tiny one-bathroom house. Where in the world would I have thought she was sleeping? We never thought of it at all.
No. I know from stories back in the 40s and 50s, my mom grew up in a house with lots and lots of kids and not a lot of money and not a lot of space. I know a couple of my uncles used to sleep in the bathtub. Seriously.
No, I believe you.
Yeah.
I believe you.
But by the time our family was established down the road, that was never an issue. That never came up. But I don't think it's totally unheard of.
No, but it was totally unheard of for me and even for Deacon, who was raised as one of 8 kids. So there were 10 people in his house, but I guess he and his brothers all had a bed that they shared. At least they slept on a mattress.
That's the sort of thing you just don't think about until it's right there in front of you.
Absolutely. Or being, PI.
Whatever it means, PI.
Yeah.
Choose your definition.
Yeah.
The Deacon Jones Foundation that we're talking about today on Talking Solutions with Elizabeth Jones. Elizabeth and Deacon formed this foundation back in the late 90s, helped children in at-risk situations get through those final years of school, go through college, and also at the end of it, have the responsibility to carry on and share those gifts with someone else.
Absolutely. That was the prime reason, really. The really interesting thing to me was the ripple effect of taking one child and the differences it made in their family, on their neighborhood, and their schools. The ripple effect was amazing.
To pass it on is a wonderful thing.
Yeah, and all of them did that. All of them work in community service now. All of them love it. All of them get great joy out of giving back. And none of them let us down, not a one.
Besides your own children, you have all of this extended family, all of the young ones that you passed along to.
I do. And it's nice. The young lady I was telling you about, who's a pediatric dentist now, every time that she comes to Las Vegas, she wants to take me out to lunch or dinner for a change. She wants to teach me something for a change. She shows me things on the computer and she says, thank God I finally get to show you how to do something. And it's beautiful. It's so sweet.
It's extended family.
Yeah.
You've got a pretty big family, I'm thinking, when you add in all these kids.
I do. It was worthwhile.
It sounds like you are more than happy to take and do this new generation of the Deacon Jones Foundation now that it's here in Southern Nevada with all the artists and the artwork and everything that's been approved and signed off on by the NFL and the monies that you will raise and the arts that you can share with kids in schools that don't usually have those programs because of budget cuts and all of the things that you can provide.
Yeah.
So it's already underway.
It is. I have about 60 paintings right now, and if anybody wants to take a look at them, really go to deaconjones.com. Read everything you want on the site, but click on the store and click on the paintings, and you're going to see some gorgeous NFL art that you've never seen before, because sports memorabilia dealers and collectors have the same jerseys and footballs and helmets, but they've never seen anything like this. These are not posters. This is fine art, and it's beautiful.
I will make sure that those links are also on our Talking Solutions Facebook page.
Oh, I love that.
Yes, and information on how to get in touch with the Deacon Jones Foundation and a podcast of our interview today. Didn't know all this stuff about Deacon Jones until I met you.
Well, you and I will have to be off air to talk about some other stories.
I look forward to that. And we're hoping that you will also go on the website, the Deacon Jones Foundation, deaconjones.com.
Yes.
That's where you can see the artwork. That's where I'm sure you can also find out more about the history and the work of the foundation, maybe how to get in touch with you as well.
Yeah, there's a phone number and an email that you can send to me. There's order forms if you want to purchase product directly without talking to me first. There's everything that you need. And you can pick it up on your cell phone, on your iPad. You can pick it up anywhere you are. So there's no excuse not to look.
deaconjones.com. Check into it. You're going to see things that you like there. And you'll also find out about the Deacon Jones Foundation. Elizabeth Jones, we thank you so much for joining us today on Talking Solutions.
Thank you so much for having me.
UNLV is going to start a study of exercise and the effect it has on Parkinson's disease. That study starts June 1st and coming up next week. Looking forward to welcoming Meryl Landers to tell us all about it. Plan on it. In the meantime, here's the details. The UNLV Physical Therapy Department is seeking participants for a clinical study about the effects of exercise among those with Parkinson's disease. If you are 50 years or older and have been diagnosed with Parkinson's disease, you may be eligible for the study's 8-week exercise boot camp that begins June 1st. Qualified participants will receive a balance assessment, heart rate monitor, physical assessment, bone density test, and $50. The study is funded by the Clinical and Translational Research Infrastructure Network, National Institute of General Medical Sciences. To apply or receive information, call Merrill Landers at 702-895-1377. That's 702-895-1377. Talking Solutions is a production of the Community Relations Department here at Beasley Media Group, Las Vegas. Get more information on today's topic on our Talking Solutions page on Facebook, where you will also find links and a podcast of today's show. Thanks for listening, and have a great week.